Another sign of being in the place of your blessing is protection. Experiencing the divine protection of God upon your life. In Genesis 12, God comes to Abram and says, go to the land I will show you, Abram. I want to make a covenant with you. So Abram obeys God, packs up his bag, and gets ready to follow God. But then he had his nephew living with him. He says, Uncle, where are you going? I'm following God. He asked me to pack up and leave. I'm coming with you, he says. So what does his nephew do, Lot? Verse 4 of Genesis 12 says, so Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. So God never called Lot. Yeah? God never appeared to Lot. But Lot just decided he's going to go where Abraham went. And sometimes it's not just a place of your blessing. There are also certain relationships that God allows that brings blessing into your life. Even though Lot was never called by God, but because he chose to stick with Abraham, he began to be blessed. Because he stayed around with Abraham, whatever blessing God blessed Abraham with overflowed into Lot's life. Because the Bible says in the next chapter of 13, it says in verse 5, it says, Lot also, who went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents. And verse 6 says, now the land was not able to support them, Lot and Abraham, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. So what happened was, because Lot decided to go with Abraham, God blessed Lot. And whatever he had, it increased. It began to flourish to the point that his wealth and Abraham's wealth was so great, the Bible says the earth could not contain it. It's hard for me to fathom that. It became so great, and the Bible goes on to explain that friction began to come between Abraham's servants and Lot's servants. Now, any man who had wisdom would have said to his servants, Lot should have said to his servants, behave, because the bread we eat is blessed because of Abraham. Get in line and cooperate with them. Don't step out of line, should be what Lot should have said, but he did not. He allowed the strife to continue to the point where Abraham says to Lot, hey, it's best for us to separate. Even then, Lot should have said, Uncle, I will not hear any talk of separation. I'm going to stay with you. Your God is going to be my God. Your people might be, what Ruth said, he should have said. He didn't. So Abraham says, pick a land and I'll take the rest. Lot looks up and says, that looks good to me. I want to pick that. So he pitches his tents. And then you jump to the very next chapter, chapter 14. Lot, his entire family is captured overnight by the king that was invading. Now, you tell me, the kings who captured and took Lot, why didn't they take Abraham and his possessions too? Because they obviously took Lot. They were not that far apart. It's because there was a divine protection upon Abraham and all that he had. The moment Lot stepped out, he lost that protection. He was no longer under that divine covering of God that was upon him because of that relationship he had, the place of his blessing. So what does Abraham do? Puts out a rescue mission. Rescues Lot. All that he had lost brings him back. At least at that point, Lot should have said, Uncle, I messed up. Let me stick with you. Let me stay with you. No. He still decided to go live by himself. And the end of Lot was so tragic, the way that he ended, because he did not understand the place and the relationship of his blessing. And this is the truth, the powerful truth of the place of blessing. It's when we discover it, we learn to stay in it.